You are not going to want to miss this update, folks. We're talking about a multinational bank with roots going back to the 19th century that has come out here and is predicting a $28 XRP. We'll be covering that after we go through the bottoming structure that we're seeing right now as we conclude this bear market and get ready to bounce on out of these levels. We're getting ready to take advantage of the final lows that are going to be set, how to position ourselves before we get moving back up and heading towards that $28 XRP. That's not a prediction from me. I know you guys like my predictions, and some of you guys don't like my predictions, but we're just here to share our honest analysis and be transparent about how we're positioned. But this bank is not scared at all to come out and be talking about a $28 XRP. Let's get right on into the update. Appreciate you guys for being here. The suits are selling it with slideshow presentations, grayscales. This is Rayhana here from Grayscale. She is head of product and research at Grayscale at that Ripple's XRP Community Day. Listen to her explain how XRP is the most talked about asset in their community behind Bitcoin. Take a listen.
We have a strong, vibrant community. I think it generally, from a blockchain and crypto perspective, there's a lot of cases where product market fit has kind of lagged the price sentiment and the narrative. We think that that's going to change over time. A battle tested blockchain that has a real opportunity to capture market share as we see the proliferation of these use cases. And ultimately, I think a lot of the excitement comes just from the demand. So, as we talk to investors around the country, enthusiasts, stakeholders. It's one of the broadest communities, and there are a lot of diehard fans. And the sales team was just telling me that, anecdotally, advisors are constantly asked by their clients about XRP. And in some cases, it's the second most talked about asset in this community behind Bitcoin. We have a
There you have it, folks. Grayscale selling it for us. And that's just another institution that's already well invested, rocking and rolling in the digital asset space. But you got firms like this with Grayscale, and then we're going to talk at the end of this episode, banks with their roots going back to the 19th century that are stepping into this technology as well. Now, I wanted to share this with you guys. We have Yoshitaka Kitao, CEO, founder of SBI Holdings. He came out, and this was interesting. He was responding to somebody who said that they had $10 billion worth of XRP. And he wanted to clarify. He said not $10 billion in XRP, but around 9% of Ripple Labs. So our hidden asset, as he calls it, the hidden asset could be much bigger. See, by the time we realize and the masses get caught up to speed on just how much of this hidden asset some of these large banks and institutions actually have, it's going to be too late. I don't know if we'll be at a $28 XRP or a much higher price XRP, but we definitely ain't going to be at a $2 XRP when all of this comes out. Now, he goes on to clarify, when it comes to Ripple Labs' total valuation, which obviously includes its ecosystem that Ripple has created, that would be enormous. SBI owns more than 9% of that much. And so what you have to understand is that SBI does have huge bags of XRP. How much of the hidden asset? Eventually, I think we'll find out. And I think that's going to shock a lot of people, not just SBI, but many other institutions. But they own 9% of Ripple Labs. And obviously Ripple has, over 40 billion XRP as well too. So SBI, technically speaking, has exposure to XRP through their holdings in Ripple Labs, but then they also directly hold XRP. I actually just saw a post where they're paying out some sort of dividend or some sort of basically a dividend or profit share. I don't think that would be the right word. I think it is a dividend. But nonetheless, in their internal reports, they're talking about how that dividend paid in XRP has the recipients of it up 4x. So they're all in on XRP, paying employees in XRP, doing dividends in XRP, huge bags of XRP, and they own 9% of Ripple Labs. And I just love the fact that he says, he calls it the hidden asset. When all these NDAs and all of these pre-allocation contracts finally get revealed, I think the world in the crypto space is going to be shocked to find out how much XRP has already been pre-allocated and just how big these bags are. I mean, look at R3. R3 tried to get 5 billion XRP from Ripple. They had a pre-allocation options contract to execute at purchasing 5 billion XRP under a penny for 3 years. This was in 2016. One of the best deals that was probably ever secured. They didn't follow up on their end of the deal from our understanding, and so there was a little dispute. They ended up settling up Ripple and R3, and R3 took in 1 billion XRP. So that's just one institution with 1% of the total XRP supply. And that goes back to 2016, 2017, when that matter was settled up. Just think of all the other banks and institutions that have that hidden asset on their balance sheet that you don't know about yet. Yeah, that's the opportunity in front of us. Permission DEX will be activated on the XRP ledger in less than 48 hours. This is the enabler of the compliant trading on the XRP DEX. Institutions can't carry their compliance requirements to the DEX without it. And I'm going to be breaking this down in a separate video. So make sure you guys have subscribed. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my updates. But we're going to be breaking this permission DEX down, make it simple for everybody to understand how important this is going to be. You cannot bring these institutions on chain unless they can do so in a compliant way. This is going to put the XRP ledger ahead of many other blockchains that do not have this compliance built in, these features built in to their native DEX. So we'll be breaking that down. Bottoming structure for crypto right now. I don't think that the low is in. I think that there's a chance that we're going to go set a new low. Basically 60 to about 50,000 for Bitcoin. And I don't think that the low is in for XRP. We could very well go back. And the range that I'm looking at is $1.20 to 90 cents. Now, if you want my full breakdown on this, go get my Discord weekly call from Saturday. You can go purchase it as a standalone, or the best bang for your buck is just to join our monthly group and come on in, and you'll get access to that weekly call and all of our other additional resources. But either way, the full alpha breakdown of the bottoming structure, why we're going to be going back down, and the lows that I'm watching out for, I recorded with my Discord group on Saturday, and then I took the rest of the weekend off. But I wanted to break this down here in just 1 minute, where this is going, the bottoming structure here, the similarities that we see from now and the bottoming structure in 2022, and what to be prepared for. So taking a look, this is Bitcoin in 2022. It happened to be a full moon lunar eclipse on November 8th that was the Sam Bankman-Fried sacrifice. If you were with me during this time, we were actually watching this date. Shout out to Waters Above Crypto. He put us onto the secret sauce. And so whether you believe in the stars or the moon or the waters above, it doesn't matter. It's just been interesting to watch the correlations. And so we were ready and watching for this date. And sure enough, that's when FTX declared bankruptcy that brought in the bottom for Bitcoin at 15.5. But before that, Bitcoin had bottomed out here in June of 2022 at 17.6. But what you see here is after the full capitulation, chopped sideways for 5 months, and then another new low came in 12% below the low that we hit in June of 2022. Now, that was when Luna blew up. So Luna blew up in 2022. 5 months later, FTX blows up in November. That brings in the low of the cycle down here at 15.5. So another 12% drop from where it bottomed out originally. Now, so if we take a look here at Bitcoin, final capitulation here, we just had it at the beginning of February, bringing us down to 60K for Bitcoin. But if we get one more low coming in, 12% below that, that's about 52,000. Which lines up with a lot of the TA that we're seeing out there from people that are much better at the TA than I am. But I just simplify this. And funny enough, we have a full moon lunar eclipse on March 3rd, the 3-3. So watch out for the 3-3 sacrifice event here, March 3rd. Going to be interesting in my opinion here. And my analysis says that between now and then, we're going to be brought down into my red box right here, which is 60,000 down to 52,000. And it could go a little bit below, could stop a little bit above, but this is just a general target, and the range is from basically now until March 3rd. Maybe give me a couple days grace, could come in a little bit after, but that's the red target for Bitcoin. Okay, for XRP, here's the bottoming structure, and what you'll see is that XRP did bottom out in June of 2022 as well, but before that, it had bottomed out in May. And it came all the way down here, you see on that side of the chart, came all the way down to 33.5 cents. But then in June, it did drop another 14.5% down to 28 cents. And that was the low for XRP during 2022. See, over here in November, after FTX collapsed, it did come back down, but only came down to 31.5. So it did not set a new low later in November, like on Bitcoin. Right? If we go back to the Bitcoin chart, that low was set in June, and then it sets another low in November. For XRP, the low was set in June. It never went below that level, but it did give us 1, 2, 3, basically 4, 5, 6, about half a dozen opportunities to buy XRP within a few cents of where that bottom came in. So as we move over to the XRP chart that I'm watching right now, I'm right here on the 4-hour chart, and this is where I think our final bear market low is coming in for XRP right now. Zoom in on it. CME gap sits above us, and that's why it wasn't a surprise for me this weekend when we ran up to $1.67. We fell short of that CME gap, but it'll be interesting to see, we could run up and hit this and fill this CME gap, which, by the way, the CME gap on Bitcoin's at 84,000, so we're still a ways away from the Bitcoin CME gap. But the XRP CME gap sits at $1.74. We got pretty close on Saturday. Or was that Sunday? Yeah, it looks like that was Sunday that we hit $1.67, and then it got wiped out. But what we're looking at here, my red box here takes us down. If we look, XRP did go down to $1.11, right? In the 2022 cycle, after that full capitulation, it then dropped another 14.5%. So that takes us down to 95 cents. And that lines up with a lot of TA gurus and experts that are calling for basically 90 cents to $1.10 XRP. But here's the thing is that I'm going to show you in the next slide here, the order books are filling up. And I already told you guys publicly, because I just keep it transparent and keep it real with you guys. I placed a buy order for spot XRP at $1.07. So if you want to front run me, go ahead. I'm just being open and upfront with everybody. I got a buy order. I'm part of the orders that came out. I'm part of the OGs that have been in XRP for 7 years, and I'm now coming back out to buy XRP spot for the first time in a couple years, right? I'm not talking about my trading bag, my futures trade, right? I'm in an XRP long that's down bad right now. It's just keeping it real. But my liquidation price is so low. I'm not worried about getting liquidated. But for the first time in a couple years, I'm taking US dollars and adding to my spot XRP bags if we go down to that dollar level, right? It's bringing people back out who are saying, yep, at these prices, I'm adding back to my XRP bags. And so watch for us to come back down into that region, but not necessarily going below $1, right? I'm just thinking that we're going back to that range. And that's why on my chart here, my red box, the top of the range is at $1.20 and the bottom is at about 95 cents. So we could come in a little bit above that. We could go in a little bit below that. This is the general range, and the time frame takes us out between now and right around the start of March, right? We got March 3rd marked off. We always give a couple days grace. Once again, if you go back to the Bitcoin chart back here, you'll see that November 8th was the full moon lunar eclipse. That's when FTX declared bankruptcy. And then it took, a little bit longer here, and then eventually we got to 15.5. That was on November 21st. So it took, what was that, 12, 13 days? Yeah. So what we're talking about here is prepare yourself. And if you look at that XRP chart, that bottoming structure in 2022, we had another half dozen opportunities to pick up very close to that low that we'd set in June. There was opportunities all throughout that year. Let's go back to the chart one more time. Look at this. We set the low in June, and then we get very close here again later in June. In July, we get it again in September. We get it again in November, and then we got it again in January of 2023. You could have picked up a 29-cent XRP. So that's what I'm saying. Get your orders placed because they won't be filled. It's going to come so quickly. Here's more data to confirm that. Dom, TraderView 2, there's an interesting dynamic in the spot order books right now. A bunch of orders popped up right above $1, which has pushed this into a strong bid skew last seen in May at the $1.70 lows. And right, that's what I'm talking about. That's my order. I'm one of those orders that popped up right above $1 after this happened. This book is extremely thin all the way back to $2, only 10 million US dollars resting in the book. And he's talking about there's only $10 million of sell orders between here and $2. So very thin liquidity. Overall liquidity has vanished and is at its lowest level in nearly 2 years. And if you look at this chart that he has, let me see how zoomed in I can get us on that. You can see down here at the bottom, this right here is at $1.10. You can see all that liquidity sitting down there. So that would be my order, many of your guys' orders that's trying to front run $1, which is why I'm warning, don't get too greedy here, right? A lot of people want to see XRP go back to 50 cents. We would all love to pick up XRP at 50 cents again. We're a long ways away, and there's a lot, that's waiting to come in and buy up that dip between where we're at right now and a 90 cent or $1 XRP. So that's where I see us bottoming out. Like I said, if you want the full breakdown, go sign up through my website. Patreon gets you access to Discord, and the full breakdowns in our Saturday Discord weekly call, where we go even more in depth. But let's talk about a $28 XRP right here. Standard Chartered slashes their 2026 targets as ETF fatigue sets in. But the bank's digital asset lead, Jeffrey Kendrick, warns of a final capitulation phase before the recovery. Here's the breakdown. So their target for 2026 was $8. They've dropped it down to $280. Bitcoin was 150,000. They've dropped it down to 100K. Ethereum was 7,500. They've dropped it down to 4,000. So this is their targets for 2026 all the way out through 2030. And if you look at the XRP chart, right, they've dropped their targets for all of these coins in 2026. Looks like they've kept their Avalanche, or no, Avalanche was 100. Now their target's 18. Wow, that's brutal. Yeah, that's brutal there. But they do have Bitcoin going to 200,000 in 2027, 300, 400, 500,000 in 2030. And they have Ethereum going to 40,000 by 2030. Solana at 2,000 by 2030. I have a tough time with those predictions, but I do like their XRP prediction. If I can pick and choose. Not so sure about these ones for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Good luck and God bless to you. For those of you guys that hold those coins, I hope so. But I'm not holding my breath or banking on that one. But a $28 XRP by 2030. Their target for 2027 is $7. They've revised these targets lower for XRP. It's interesting though. Looks like they revised their 2029 target higher. 2027, $7. 28, $12. 29, $19 XRP. In 2030, $28 XRP. For those of you guys who don't know, Standard Chartered is a major British multinational bank. Focuses primarily on international banking, and they focus on Asia, Africa, and the Middle East in particular. They're listed on the London Stock Exchange and the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and they have roots that go back to 1853 and 1862. This is a bank that's been around since the 19th century. And what's interesting about this is they focus on emerging markets, and cross-border expertise is what they're known for. So that's what I find so fascinating about this prediction is this is not just some random willy-nilly community bank in the US or some other region. This is a global multinational bank based in London, been around since the 19th century, 80,000 plus employees, and an expertise in cross-border payments, which makes me feel like their analysis on XRP they have a little bit more insights into XRP, obviously cross-border just being one of the use cases for XRP. But this is a $28 XRP prediction by 2030, just to show you guys what that looks like. That'd be a 17-bagger, 1,784% from the levels that we're trading at right now. From $1.47, and if I'm right, maybe you'll get a pickup a little bit closer to $1. That gets even bigger multiple. But we're looking at nearly an 18-bagger between now and 2030. I challenge anybody to show me where you're getting better alpha at, where you're getting a better ROI at. Please, I'm serious. If you can find me an 18-bagger between now and 2030, please drop it in the comments down below. But this, to me, looks like to be a conservative prediction, a conservative 18-bagger from Standard Chartered with an expertise in cross-border payments. You guys let me know in the comments down below. All of our resources are at the website. God bless you all. I am your host, Zach Rector. I really appreciate all of the love and support. If you want to support the channel, just remember that you can start by smashing that thumbs up for me, sharing this content far and wide, and everything else is at my website.